You find yourself in a perfect storm, on a ship that can barely keep itself together. You're fighting winds, you're fighting water, you're fighting everything to keep the ship afloat. A few of your crew members have already gone overboard and undoubtedly died a gruesome, drowning and painful death, being eaten by sharks as we speak. You lose consciousness, and a few hours later, or maybe even a few days later, you find yourself on a beach. The locals take you in until you're back on your feet. You are on a beautiful new continent of Tilia, and you are the chosen one. Hi there, fellow role players and game masters. I am page 286 in the Monsters Manual, and this is still your go-to YouTube channel for everything third-party Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition related. I do reviews, previews, flip-throughs, I talk about Kickstarters, and if there's anything non-Wizards of the Coast to talk about in D&D, I will probably be talking about it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and put in the comments what you want to see me review, or what you think about my videos, or whatever. Get in on the conversation. Awesome community. Hit the subscribe button. We're talking about Odyssey of the Dragonlords today, and I have to say, I'm going to be upfront with you. Wow. I mean, this thing is AAA. This thing is beyond any other thing that I've held in my hands for a long time. There's a lot of good quality out there, and I'm talking about a lot of the companies that make third-party D&D stuff. I'm talking about Wizards of the Coast himself. This is just AAA. This is a heavy, thick book, and it weighs a shit ton, and that's why I'm sitting down, by the way, because I have armrests, and I need these armrests in order to hold this book for an entire review, because otherwise I will get cramps in my hands. It is a complete campaign, spanning from levels 1 all the way up to level 15. There is world building. There's the entire continent of Tilia together with some islands. There are deities in here. There are classes in here. There are races in here to play. There is just an entire story and everything in this thing. And that is why I absolutely love it. Everything in this book makes sense. None of it, and I mean none of it. I've read 90% of this thing. That's why I made no videos last week, because I was reading this. None of this feels added on. The classes all belong in this world. The races all belong in this world. The freaking spells, magic items, gods, goddesses, everything belongs in this world. And I will talk about it in this video. So first, let me talk about what Odyssey of the Dragonlords is, a bit of the lore, what's happening. There is this continent of Tilia, and it used to be lived on by locals like satyrs and centaurs and cyclopses. All those weird races lived on the continent of Tilia. But then a bunch of new people arrived by means of shipwrecklings, people that accidentally got there. Humans, dwarves, gnomes, halflings, maybe even some dragonborn, who knows, came to this continent and they start making settlements, but they got like in a fight with the satyrs and the cyclops, and all kind of stuff went on. This island was ruled by the titans, a few of the titans being like a pain in the ass to the people, unless the people would sacrifice goats to them and food to them and gold to them, whatever. If people worship these titans would they would like be less a pain in the ass. So people out of fear started worshipping these titans, but they didn't really want to. But every time they drank from a cup of wine, they had to speak the name of a certain goddess before drinking from the wine. Otherwise, bad fortune would happen on those people. And it was not superstition, it was real titans doing really crazy stuff. I will get into that in a bit. But then the Dragonlords showed up, and that's why it's called Odyssey of the Dragonlords. These were a bunch of mortal dragon riders who decided to take up arms against the titans. And this is the first war happened. The Dragonlords, together with the people of Tilia, fought the titans. But the titans, they had an army in the form of the centaurs, the cyclopses, and everything that was living on this continent before. So you get this entire war of races and titans against these Dragonlords and everything. Nobody really won that war, like almost any war, right? Nobody really won that war, and there was this pact. The pact of peace, basically, and there would be peace for 500 years. Now, in the time of this war, 5 gods showed up. Not gods in the sense like sitting in heaven or something like that and smiting people from above. No, gods in the form of human beings walking amongst men, and people knew these were gods. You could see it in their eyes, these were gods, and they were like really helping the people. And there's a lot more going on, but the basic idea is that there is now this pact of peace, but it's almost at its end. And the world in these 500 years of the Pact of Peace has thrived. I mean, big capital cities showed up. There's a lot of towns. There's a lot of... It's a continent that lives and thrives, and it's really awesome, and it's really well built in this book. But the Pact of Peace is almost about to stop, and the Titans will probably show up again. And it's up to the players. The players are actually the chosen ones to stop the Titans. I'm not even kidding. They are the chosen ones to stop the Titans. They don't even know they're the chosen ones in the beginning, but there is this prophecy of the players being the chosen ones to stop the Titans, and there are still a bunch of these dragonlords. Like, almost all dragonlords died in the first war, and like all dragons from the dragonlords died in the first war, but there was a few dragonlords that survived and got children. So a few of those children, they became mayors of the city, and some of the 5 gods that walk the earth, a few of them are mayors and kings of cities and provinces. Other ones just travel and spread the good news and everything. But there's somebody is bound to fight the Titans, and it is up to the players to do that. Now, I only have the campaign book, the big fat book that is Odyssey of the Dragonlords, the campaign book. I do not have the player's companion, and yes, there is a player's companion that comes with it, but I have no idea what's in it, because I don't have it. So if you have an idea what's in it, make sure to put that in the comments below. Otherwise, there's a lot of player stuff in here. So I'm thinking that the player's guide is just this without the world building and without the DM stuff, if I'm guessing. There are races in here, there are classes in here, magic items in here, backgrounds in here, epic paths in here, which are really cool. So I think you only need this thing in order to play it and make a bunch of characters that belong in this world. And that's the most important thing about Odyssey of the Dragonlords. Odyssey of the Dragonlords is a campaign setting and an adventure, and the first thing about that is the campaign setting is a real campaign setting. It is basically based on Greek mythology, and there is this main plot line, but the reason I love it is just the way it is built. This is AAA. It's built by a bunch of famous people that build video games, like a bunch of famous video games. It's in here somewhere. It all makes sense, like one of those video games when you're playing Skyrim, for example, just on the top of my head. You have this world where everything you find, like every piece of lore and every monster and every dungeon and every town, everything you find belongs in that world of Skyrim, and it doesn't feel added on. And that's the same thing with Odyssey of the Dragonlords. So I will just talk about what you get from buying this book and why it is really worth getting. Like, first of all, look at this cover. I mean, this cover, if that's not an amazing, sorry, glare, always have glare problems. If this is not an amazing cover, I do not know what is an amazing cover. You have like these bunch of people that are like, holy shit, there's a bronze dragon on top of that building. Now, the first part you get from this book is actually like, you get like a bunch of cool artwork already when you open it. There's all kinds of like these pieces of artwork that don't really tell a story, but more, it gives me like this Peter Jackson kind of vibe, where it shows the landscape, like a Tolkien kind of vibe, where they talk about the landscape a lot and the feeling of the continent a lot, and these kinds of pictures really, really help for that. It begins with the entire, and this is, I like this. It begins with an introduction and then an overview, and the introduction is one page. Exactly one page with the entire campaign, almost, without some of the major plot twists, but the entire campaign written on 1 or 2 pages. It is really short. There are like the story overview. There's chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then there's like 5 sentences describing what is going on in that part. So in the next chapter, they go deeper into the continent itself and the chapters again, but now they really talk about the chapters, what is going on. There are the 5 gods, there are the titans, they're all described, they're all named, they are all like their relationship with each other. Like there is this titan that has 2 kids, and these kids are evil, and but the one major titan is not really evil. Like there is the titan called Tilia. The continent is named Tilia, by the way, and there's one titan called Tilia who is basically just a big ass tree that sits in the middle of the continent and has its roots through the entire continent, and that's why it keeps the continent together. That's what people believe. So it goes all the way in there, and that's basically the only part you really need to read before jumping into this campaign. You only need to read the introduction, like the big scope of what's going on, and then you just read the parts your players are going to do. Now, keep in mind, it is kind of an open world kind of thing, and your players can sometimes decide what to do in what order. So I would advise reading the entire introduction and then reading like the first 2 or 3 small chapters. So if your players go through chapter 3 first and then do chapter 2, you know what is going on, and you don't need to be doing any reading in order to get stuff done. So something that really shows is that they try to build this thing, this story like a video game kind of, where doing one thing opens up the ability to go somewhere else and do another thing, like the old Grand Theft Auto games where you needed to do a few missions in one area to open up a new area. It's basically what's going on in Odyssey of the Dragonlords. Now, I'm not here to go in completely into the lore, but this entire section, talks about the main things that are going to happen in the adventure, how the gods play into it, how the titans play into it, how the dragonlords play into it, how the people play into it, how the people that used to live on Tilia play into it. The entire thing is written out, but then they have this small section right here, this small thing. It's just this big, and it talks about just story structure. This is the story structure of Tilia, blah blah blah. First thing they do is learning of the prophecy, where the players learn they are the chosen ones, which unlocks the great labors. Then they complete the great labors, which the great labors are 3 labors, big things your players need to do in order to prove themselves. One of them, for example, is killing a enormous boar, and I'm not saying just like a big boar that could, like a boar that could lift your car if it was walking outside of your house. Go look outside of your house if there's no boar there. Anyway, it is a big boar. They need to kill it. There's 3 of those labors. If they complete all 3 of them, it unlocks the city of Mitros. Then they have to recover a ghost ship, which unlocks another part. And that other part unlocks the Forgotten Sea. And once again, go to the Forgotten Sea. They have to confront both of the Titans, which unlocks the Battle of Mitros. They do the Battle of Mitros by collecting the divine artifacts, and that triggers the apocalypse, which is not good, but they need to go through that. This is like the entire structure of the story. And you as a dungeon master can always flip back and just read one part and like, oh yeah, that's what it was about, and then go back here and like read like a few things and just know what is going on. So it's a really easy build, and one thing leads to another, which is really, really cool. Then there is a part which I really, really love, and it's epic paths. The epic paths are an optional rule of optional backgrounds type of stuff, but it is different than backgrounds. Backgrounds just give you a bunch of maybe languages, a skill here and there, maybe some tools, but these are tied into the story and they are optional. But if you play this thing without them, you are, I don't know, you're being stupid. This belongs into your story. You could play this campaign with a random barbarian from the 5th edition player's handbook, and the rogue and the fighter and the cleric and the wizard, right? Like a standard party type of thing. But you can give all of them a epic path. And an epic path consists of, there's no artwork here at this point. So the epic path are, one of your players can be the cursed one, the other one can be the demigod, the other one can be the doomed one, another one a dragon slayer, a gifted one, the haunted one, the lost one. These are all paths, which, and this is such a cool system, right? For example, the cursed one. The cursed one comes from a family who has been cursed in the past. Whatever curse. There is a bunch of curse in here. By the way, there are also curses in here. There's an entire political system with curses and everything. I'll talk about that in a bit. The cursed one angered the Titans in some way, and this family is cursed. What you have to do with your heroic task, your epic path, is every epic path has like a downside. You're cursed, you have some downsides, but it also comes with a job, a task, in order to lift it, in order to do something. For example, if you're the cursed one, your heroic task is to end your family's curse, and it says here how you can end that, and if you end it, what good perk you get. For example, there is this one player in your party who's going to be the demigod. They might not even know they're a demigod, but your players are the chosen ones, so one of the players might take the demigod as their epic path. Like Hercules or one of those demigods that I know everything about. I know like exactly one. Achilles? Wasn't Achilles kind of like a demigod type of heroic type of person? I'm not sure. You have like, you are a demigod, so you must be native to Tilia. You have to have an adventurer who there's a bunch of stuff you need to have or do to be the demigod. And then there is the heroic task: find your mother, defeat your greatest foe, finish building Pythor's greatest weapon, and if you do that, you get a divine blessing. So every epic path is like, you have something that makes you in the world of Thylea. Then you have to do a task which is unique to you as a player, as a character. And if you do that task, you get a divine favor from the gods. And I really love this system. And the system is on top of your background. You can be a soldier that is a demigod. That's no problem. You can be a doomed sage, or you can be the lost one, which is for players who must be an explorer of a distant land. If you come from another land, you could be the lost one, like a shipwreck from another continent or whatever. You could be the lost one. And if you do your heroic task, for example, find your surviving crew members, find a way to get back home. If you do those things, you get a divine blessing. For example, the blessing of luck. You may re-roll any attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. You must use the second roll. The blessing cannot be used again until after a long rest. Now, as a dungeon master, use this as a story tool, but don't do it too quickly. If you give like this divine blessing, this blessing of luck, and all these blessings to your players too soon, they will be too powerful too soon. Finding your crew members, for example, make that something your players are trying to do across their adventure, across their level. And once they reach like level 12 or level 13, maybe they find this hook and they find this clue from where their crew members are, and then they find them, and then they get that blessing, and then they're like almost the highest level for this campaign, and they can go and defeat the Titans. Okay, we're backtracking a little bit. Before I talk about the classes and the races and the bestiary, yes, there is an entire bestiary in this freaking monster of a book. I want to talk about a few locations that I think are really cool. Now, your players are going to travel Tilia, and they're going to travel almost the entire continent. Some of this stuff is they have to do in order to progress the story, and some of this stuff is optional, and they can go to towns and places that are completely optional, and maybe they skip that and the writer's written it for no reason other than it being in the book. But anyway, the continent of Tilia is so well built, and you just want to keep reading. It's not just a campaign setting where they put stuff in there in order to fill it up, and there's a dungeon here, and there's this and there's that, and there's, oh yeah, just put a continent there. No, this really all makes sense. And everywhere where your players go, this it is completely written out with artwork, For NPCs, like really ridiculously good artwork for NPCs. There is again these Peter Jackson / Tolkien kind of artwork of like not really a map, but just an idea of what it looks like. There are forests, and there's what it looks like, where your players are going. There's a lot of like this flavor text in blue boxes, which I really like. You don't have to like copy it as a dungeon master and read it exactly like it's here, but if you read it, you as a dungeon master really get an idea of what they meant in this book. There are, of course, like all of the places they go are mapped out. There's a lot of overland travel maps you can show to your players. Like this is the first section. The important dungeons are mapped out. It's all written out. This is the part where they have to go and kill that ginormous boar, which is in the back in the bestiary part. There are like they are traveling an entire continent, and there's just so many amazing places. Another great piece of artwork is like these waterfalls, which don't really say exactly what is going on. It's not a map per se, but it's just a bunch. It just feels the way it needs to feel, and that's using artwork the way it's meant to be used, at least to my opinion. Another very cool location is the statue of Pytor. Well, the Colossus of Pytor, and normally only the king has access to this thing. This is entire. Well, it's actually a statue, but it's also a tower, and it's completely made by bronze material. And one of the bad guys in the story, well, bad women in the story, actually made tunnels into the feet of the statue, and now can. Actually is doing her bad stuff from inside this statue, a secret base of operations, which is really cool. Your players can go in there and clear that out. It's just it's kind of an in-between thing, but I really love it. The only downside of it is that this is like drawn in a way that it doesn't really belong in the book the same way. Some of this stuff is like really between a drawing and between photorealism. And this is just a drawing, which I just think there's a little bit of inconsistency there, but I am really nitpicking by saying that. Oh, by the way, there's gladiator fights. So before I dig into the races and the classes, there's one more thing I want to say that I really like. There are these oaths and rules and laws within the world of Tilia, which I really like. And if somebody breaks these laws, they get a curse upon them by the titans or the gods or whatever. And I really love that. For example, there is the Oath of Friendship. This is a law. And if you find a person who is far away from home, you have to take them in, give them food, give them shelter, give them water, until they are better. Even if he or she is your worst enemy or belongs to another army, if they're far away from home and in need of help, you need to take them in. This is the Oath of Friendship. Both parties agree on this oath. So a wounded soldier of another party knocks on your door, and he's all wounded and he is hungry and everything. He shakes your hand and you take this Oath of Friendship. And this Oath of Friendship lasts until the person leaves. When the person leaves, you can go on being not acquainted anymore or even being enemies, no problem at all. He rejoins his army and lives to fight another day. But during the Oath of Friendship, nobody can break the oath. And if you break the oath, if you're stupid enough to break it, like if you stab the person who's helping you, or the person who is helping stabs the soldier or whatever, you become cursed. And these curses are real curses. And there's a bunch of these rules in here, laws, and not really laws, more like guidelines to live by. And if you break those guidelines, you get cursed. You can also break those curses in some cases. It's very cool for the players to know about, because if they are wounded and somebody helps them and they do this Oath of Friendship with that person and they then stab that person, they get cursed. It's really cool role-playing opportunities right there. I just wanted to talk about that system. Also, like, this entire thing spans from level 1 to 15. They travel the entire continent. There's so much storytelling here, so much NPCs here, so many villains here. There's an entire system, fame system, with 20 fame points, where it starts with people in the local tavern know your name, and it ends with your name is etched into the fabric of the multiverse. and everything in between, right? There's all these things, there's armors, there's magic items, and then there are the playable races. I really wanted to talk about the playable races. Centaur are in here, the Centaur are in here, which we all know what Centaurs are. We all know what Centaurs are, right? Half human and half horse, and we don't know what part is used for what, because basically they have two stomachs, right? So when they eat, when a centaur eats, does it go to its human belly or does it go to its horse belly? Do they have two hearts? Really weird. There's centaurs in here, there's satyrs in here, there's minotaurs in here, and the artwork for these creatures are really well done. Again, draw-ish, but very cool draw-ish kind of artwork. Really awesome. There are, what are in here? The nymph. There's a nymph in here, and these are all like the old races. So some of these races as a playable race are going to be super hard to play, because some of these races are absolutely not welcome in the cities and some of the towns and some of the villages, and if people see you, they will probably just kill you on sight. So be very careful when playing these races, or just make sure to like put a hoodie on and look like a halfling while you're actually a satyr or something like that. Cool role-playing opportunities, of course. If maybe you're playing this thing from the evil side, you're turning this thing around and you're trying to stop the people who are part of the prophecy, and you are an evil party and trying to stop them. That could be a cool thing to do, maybe for a one-shot in between when a player is sick or whatever. Then there are the subclasses, and the subclasses are also tied in to this overarching. I'm so tired from reviewing this thing. There is so much to talk about in Odyssey of the Dragonlords. It's getting really ridiculous. There's the College of Poetry for the bards. There's no artwork there. There's the Cleric Prophecy domain with a awesome piece of artwork. It's the Prophecy domain, where you get a bunch of divination kind of stuff, like the Divination Wizard, the School of Divination. But then for the Cleric, you can see stuff before it happens. Really cool stuff. There is, and this thing I love. It is the Circle of Sacrifice for the Druid. They're sacrificing somebody right here, by the way. The Circle of Sacrifice is basically when you kill somebody, you can set them alight. Like, cast a spell, and they go up in flames. And everybody standing near you is blessed. And all you do is you sacrifice stuff and people in order to gain benefits. For example, you're always walking around with mistletoes, a bunch of mistletoes, and you can use them, so you need to pick them. If you use them, they're gone. You use them to detect magic, cure wounds without using a spell slot, purify food without using a spell slot, heroism without using a spell slot. You use these mistletoes. So if you have a bunch of mistletoes in your bag, that's cool. You use these. But if you're in a city, you might run out of mistletoes. So these mistletoes are kind of like spell slots, extra spell slots in order to cast certain spells. Really cool for a druid. I absolutely am going to play this class in one of my upcoming games because, yeah, I never play a druid, and I think druids are so cool. And with this Circle of Sacrifice, it's so cool. Then my favorite class, the Hoplite Soldier for the fighter. If there was ever a stereotypical fighter-soldier type of artwork, it's this. It is awesome. It is just awesome. And this thing is really what I have been looking for in a lot of third-party books. A lot of people try to do like this sword and shield and spear type of fighter. Frontline, shield wall type of thing. Used to fight in great numbers, and Odyssey of the Dragonlords really does it well. You have the shield wall ability where everybody gets +2 in armor class as long as they're standing next to somebody with a shield, and people with a shield get +1 on their armor class, including you. It doesn't stack, by the way, so you cannot have like a bunch of these soldiers stacking armor class all the way up to 50 or 100. There is the Spearmaster thing where your spear hit die goes up and your reach becomes 10 feet. There is this defense thing where you can stab somebody who stabbed your friend, and then there is a shield buster ability where you can disarm somebody's shield with your spear or your sword, and then there is another ability where you can swing your spear around yourself if you're surrounded, and you can hit a bunch of creatures instead of you can use one of your attack actions to attack multiple creatures who are within 5 feet of you. You can only do that like once or whatever. Really, really cool. Like, these all belong in here. Like, this really looks like one of those people that belong into a book based on Greek mythology, right? It's a fantasy version because he's holding the head of some kind of demon person with horns, so it's a fantasy version, but it's still, and his sword is a light, so there's flames on his sword. This is a fantasy version, but it's cool, and I think it all belongs in here. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've read like 90, maybe 80, 85, 90% of this book, of the words that are in this book, I've read. Like, outside of all these stat blocks. I haven't gone through all these stat blocks of all the monsters, but it's just, it's silly, it's amazing. Everything belongs in here. Oh, so there's also a naked monk. There's a naked monk in here, if you like naked monks. Well, he's not really naked, but use your imagination. The second to last part of the book, the dramatis, I never know how to pronounce this word, dramatis persona, which are basically the stats. I mean, this is weird stuff, right? These are basically statted out titans, gods, and everything you find in the adventure. And there is some really crazy stuff out there. Like, I don't want to know what this book costs to produce, but this bestiary part, the dramatis persona, it's full of full page art, full color, super high quality. I mean, this thing must have cost like $1 million or something. Dollars or euros, not cows or whatever. Medusas! I absolutely hate Medusas. And the cool thing is, there is a curse that if you break like the oath of friendship or whatever, you actually turn into a Medusa. I thought centaurs were weird. And that is basically it for Odyssey of the Dragonlords. No, I'm lying. There's also a section on magic items. There's politics. There are laws. There are hierarchies. There are more monsters. There are NPCs I didn't talk about. This thing is huge, and the cool thing about it, it is complete. It refers to some creatures in the Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual and classes in the Player's Handbook, but other than that, it is complete. It is a campaign setting. It is a campaign. It is a bestiary. It is a player handbook. It is everything you need to run a campaign for many, many years. You will not run through this in a few sessions. You will probably run through this. If I would run through it would probably take like up to 5 years or something to complete this thing. It is absolutely amazing and absolutely worth buying. I would even consider buying this for the options alone, just to take stuff out of this and put it in my game, even if I'm not following the storyline. Like, some of the dungeons are amazing, some of the puzzles are amazing, some of the monsters in here, you can just use them. The classes, the races, the spells, the new domains, you can all use them in your own game, so it's even worth the money if you're not, like, literally following the storyline of Odyssey of the Dragonlords. But I really want to play this now. I want to run it, but I'd much rather want to play it. Even if I know all of the information, I'm very good at playing characters that don't know anything. So I would just roleplay the heck out of that. But I would really love to play one of these fighters, subclasses in Odyssey of the Dragonlords. I absolutely Love it. So that was it for Odyssey of the Dragonlords. Sorry for the bad framing here and there for the artwork and the inside of the book and whatever. It is because I'm sitting down in front of my webcam because the book is that heavy and I need the armrests in order to keep it up for like filming. Because I'm filming this video, it takes like an hour of work, whatever, and I get cramps in my hands. Anyway, if you've watched my video until the end, make sure to comment below with what is better, the knight or the bishop. I'm talking about chess, by the way.